This year has prodigious opportunities. 8,760 hours that God will give us in 2020. Now, of those hours, we will spend 2,080 at work if you work a 40-hour job. You will spend just over 2,000 hours asleep if you sleep 7 or 8 hours. And you will have 3,760 hours that we could call discretionary hours. How will we use those hours? That's what this lesson is about. We're going to complete our previous session and combine it with this session for how to use time. But let's go through, and we'll do this a little more quickly on purpose. But the next, if you're still filling out the sheet, the next one is set goals. Be goal-oriented. 1 Corinthians 15:58, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. Now, there's a difference in a goal and a dream. A dream is how we wish the world was. A goal is how we're willing to work to make the world. Now, goals accomplish these purposes. Number one, they allow us to take responsibility for our lives. It's important that we choose who we serve. Joshua 24:15. A part of choosing to serve God is choosing to use my time, which is my life, in His service. So goals allow me to direct, to take responsibility for my life. Number two, goals allow for sequencing. What does that mean? Well, a lot of people are going to come at us every day wanting this, needing this, asking for this. Some of them are important enough to invest a lot of time in. Some of them are not. It's not that people are not important, but the time that God gave us and responsibilities that we have for our wives, for instance, is different than our boss. For our children is different from a neighbor across the street. And there may be someone who comes frequently asking or demanding large portions of my day just to talk or just to go with them to accomplish something that is on their list, but it's not on my list. So we have to sequence, okay? Because if I use up all my time at work, I don't have any time with my family. Is my family going to suffer for that? Maybe not today, but if I do that consistently. So it allows for sequencing. I'm setting my goals based on how I think, on the people that I think are most important in my life. Number three, it allows movement from remorse to change. All of us have things that we regretted in our past. 2 Corinthians 7:10, repentance is not something we regret or we later look back on and say, I wish I hadn't done that. No, we may say, and we should say, I wish I had not sinned before, but the sooner we repent, the sooner we can get past the sin. It's not, some people just wallow in their guilt over and over, but setting a goal allows us to move from the guilt to the forgiveness. Philippians 3:13-14, Paul said, forgetting those things which are behind, I press toward the mark of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. Number four, it's a tool for character building. What if you have trouble controlling your anger? Not that anybody in here has ever had trouble controlling anger, but just for a hypothetical question, you think a goal might be learn to act with patience? Or maybe something more specific, I will count to 10 before I respond if I am angry. That's character building. It allows me, what was it that James and John were called in their early days? Sons of the energies. Who was it wanted to call down fire from heaven and burn up a village that wouldn't let them come? What is John known? What are John's epistles known for? He is the apostle of love. He went from wanting to call down fire and burn up a whole village of people, including women and children, to being the apostle of love. That's character building. So that tells me that the things that I struggle with, that I wish were different about me, can change, but not without a decision, not without a goal of wanting to change. So goals allow us to do that. Number 5 on your list, it shows that we are serious about serving God. Goals should reflect 3 vantage points. One is the day, one is the month, and one is the year. And of the 3, the most important is the year. Because a day, we live life a day at a time, but a lot of our goals are not accomplished on that short of a time frame. So the year is the optimal amount to measure it. In fact, have you seen the acronym SMART, S-M-A-R-T, for goals? Specific, measurable, accountable, S-M-A-R, realistic, and time-based. Those are important. Each one's important for a different reason. Specific, do not set as a goal, I want to lose weight. Well, we might need to do that. But a better goal would be, I want to lose 15 pounds. That's a specific goal. And then, as measurable, that allows, I want to be more evangelistic. Not a good goal. A better goal is, I want to set up 10 Bible studies this year. Or I want to conduct 30 Bible studies this year with non-Christians. That's a good goal. You can't make them obey the gospel, but you can be responsible for setting up the Bible study. Measurable, accountable. Tell somebody. Your spouse, a good friend at church, an elder. Those of us who preach, maybe a preacher friend that you really confide in. Say, well, these are my goals this year. Would you ask me about them through? Well, that's the reason Weight Watchers has been successful through the years, because they have weigh-in day, right? It makes it accountable. You have to go up there, and at least you used to. I've never been in it, but I know people that are, and I probably should be. But they go up there, and they know they're going to have to step on the scale in front of everybody else. Well, that makes them accountable for that chocolate cake that they didn't eat yesterday. Realistic. First of the year, beginning of the year, you write your goals for the year. I want to lose 100 pounds. I want to baptize 30 people. Well, it seems good at the time, but it's not very realistic, is it? So realistically, and then time-based, I want to lose 15 pounds in 3 months or 6 months. That way it puts it in, I know if I haven't done it by a certain day, then I haven't reached my goal. Practice time-saving habits. Ephesians 5:16, redeeming the time for the days are evil. Redeeming means to buy back. Redeeming, here are a few time-saving habits. Several years ago, I was really close to burning out, had a lot of things going on. You may have been there. Christmas break, we were going to go out of town. I went to Books A Million and bought some books on time management, read those over the break. Came back and implemented those, and that has been very helpful. And here are some of the things that I've learned from those books. These are, you may have picked up on these, and they're not religious necessarily, but they're very helpful. Use small amounts of time. Probably if I only have one, this is the one I'd tell you. Small amounts of time. Did you know that 15 minutes a day is 90 hours in a year? That's 2 working weeks, 15 minutes a day. Laptops are the greatest invention. You can work. I know some of you, you would have to apply this differently, but as a preacher, I work 15 minutes all the time. Wife's running to Walmart. I don't need anything. I work, in the car, 15 minutes. My doctor laughs at me. I go in for a doctor's visit. I used to hate going to the doctor because they make you wait. It's like their time is so much more valuable than your time. You get here 30 minutes early, and we'll run you through this rat race of different rooms, and finally you'll see the doctor. So I was like, I'm having to wait. I got things to do. My youth, now I take my laptop in there and put my earplugs in, and I'm working, and the girl says, "Your turn." "Okay, just a minute." And I go back and sit in the room, and I'm working. Doctor comes and says, "You're always working." That's better than sitting here and looking at my phone. I got small amounts of time. You can get a lot done on certain projects in 15 minutes. So don't waste. You can kick a bucket over and it'll be emptied, but you can have a little hole in the bucket and it'll get just as empty. Well, the opposite of that is true. If you plug that hole, which we'll talk about in our next session after lunch, 15 minutes back and back and back and back, then you can gain a lot of time. You can get a lot done. Number next, overlap when possible. Overlap when possible. I'll give you an illustration from writing. It'd be different for you, but you take the idea. I research and write a sermon to preach on Sunday. Well, I don't just try to write some notes down. I go ahead and type up a manuscript of that subject, and then I'll make some notes that I'll preach from, handwritten notes. That helps you remember it. When you write it, you remember it. You might not have to look at them if you write them. And then that sermon becomes a bulletin article. Church won't even remember 3 weeks later, Or even if they do, they say, "Oh, I missed that point." Add to their. It's a good thing. And then that article becomes a track the next year. That track becomes a Bible course lesson the year after that, and then it becomes a chapter in a book the year after that, or 5 years after that. Overlapping. I'm going to have to spend. I don't think people that don't preach could really know this, but you preachers know this. It's about 20 hours before Sunday goes into that study for Sunday. People say, "What do preachers do all week?" Well, they go to the coffee shop, and And sometimes it's a lot more than that, depending on what subject it is. You're going to preach on the Holy Spirit next Sunday? You're probably going to read 30 hours. Maybe you're preaching on baptism, it might only be 10 if you know that subject really well. But you see the point. Now, that same 20 hours can be used just for one sermon. Or that 20 hours then can be used for 4 other things. And you multiply. You overlapped. And another thing is, every stage it gets a little bit better. Because you reread it. It's edited again by, we got 3 proofers, editors. And every time, every stage they edit it, catch things. And I think of new things. About 5 years later, you've got some new things and you can put that in. So it gets better all the way through. Overlap. Cluster is the third one. One illustration is phone calls. I save them up and do them all at one time. That's what clustering is. Usually do that in the car when I'm going on a trip, save up 3 phone calls. I need to call these people back. So I'll call them. I'm driving down the road talking, just like we're talking here and the way the technology is now. Well, it takes less time to make 3 calls back to back to back than it takes to make 3 calls on 3 different days. Because you will say, I got a couple more calls I need to make. I guess I better get off here. And people understand that. They don't want to waste a lot of time on the phone either. So, clustering. You can also do clustering with birthday cards. I try to send a birthday card to every member, an anniversary card to every member every year. People say, "How do you remember that?" The end of the month, which was this week, secretary sent an email and said, "You need to come by and do the birthday cards." So I went by. You know how long it took to do the whole church's birthday cards? 10 minutes. I hand wrote out a note to every person have a birthday anniversary of this. And all month long, thanks for the birthday card. I won't even remember writing it to them, I may say, some people you like to joke with, and you'll put something in there about, and they'll say, "That's real funny," in your, I won't remember what it was, but clustering. It would take a lot more time to get out the cards and do 3 every day than it takes to do 40 in 10 minutes. And I don't address them. The secretary can address them. And she sends them on the day that, so to get there on their birthday. All right, that's all I'll say about that. Let's move to the next one. Find a sustainable pace. Mark 4:31, Jesus said to his apostles, "Come ye apart and rest a while," because there was no much time, leisure, even to eat. So they had so many people demanding of their time. Jesus said, we've got to get you some rest. So he took them apart for a little while. We need to do that ourselves sometimes. So a sustainable pace. It's good to overcommit a little bit because it does force us to move to the next project quicker. But if you overcommit too much and it starts stressing you, you don't do a good job on your commits and it's unhealthy. So you have to, in your own life, you have to determine what overcommitting a little is versus a lot. That's also about that. Make mid-course adjustments. That means if you're in the middle of a project, this is taking way more time than I thought it was going to, and this is not really going to be that, it's not going to be this helpful. I'm not going to finish this. Sometimes that's the wisest thing to do. The most important part of time management is figuring out what to work on. If you get the right thing to work on, but if you waste time on the wrong things, then that's wasted time. So make mid-course adjustments. And Alice in Wonderland, there's what has been taken from that called the Red Queen effect. The Red Queen effect is based on a conversation Alice has with the Red Queen. And Alice is running. She says, "But I'm not getting anywhere. I'm running as fast as I can and I'm not getting anywhere." And the Red Queen says, "Well, here you have to run as fast as you can to stay in the same place. And if you want to get anywhere else, you have to run twice as fast." Well, some people live their lives like that. They're running as fast as they can, trying to get everything done, but they're not getting anywhere. So we have to step back and say, I'm going to reevaluate this. And no is an important word to learn to say. Sometimes I just can't do that. Keep focused. Let me just give you these four. There's what's called chronobiology, which just refers to time management as it relates to your body cycle or to your energy level. You might be different. I think it's probably typical to be able to focus better in the morning. So this is what I do. You might do something different because you might be different. But there's certain projects that are better for certain times of day. Like in the morning, I do my reading and studying generally. Afternoon, do visits. So I'm generally tired in the afternoon. I run down. I can't focus as well. But I can sit and talk to somebody just as easy in the afternoon. If they probably didn't want me to come visit them in the morning anyway. So do your study. Studies say that if you want to learn something, remember something a long time, read it late in the afternoon. I don't know the reason behind that, but there are a lot of studies like that. So you can spend some time on it, but in your own life, you might want to say, this kind of work I'll save to in the morning. I used to do email all day long. I still read it, but I don't do it. I don't respond unless it's something quick. I'll wait till the next morning. If they need me to get them a file or proof something, or if it's going to take some energy and some time, I'll do that in the morning. I won't do that at night. I just learned that works better, and most of the time, if they need it, I'll go ahead and do it. But most of the time, it's just a project. It can wait till the morning. I don't want to move on from that. Let's talk about the 4 physical factors. Most important is sleep. Gus Nichols, I heard only needed 4 hours of sleep. And that may be one reason why his name is still known 45 years after his death or something like that. Most of us need more than 4 hours. So you might not need 8, you might not need 8 though. I need 6, 7 sometimes. You might only need 5. But the only way to know is to test it. Can you function? Is your mental energy there? But if you can save some time sleeping, but there's a negative result if you're sleeping too little, make more mistakes, you have a problem keeping a positive attitude, so forth. So sleep's number 1. Number 2, nutrition. And probably the older we get, the more we know that certain foods are not good to eat for lunch, for instance. A lot of carbohydrates and sugars at lunch probably going to mean your energy level is going to be less in the afternoon, so adjust that. Some lean protein. C, exercise. And there are ways to use your exercise time to accomplish things. It's stress management, one thing. I walk. I like to walk. So there's a lot of things you could do while you walk. I practice my sermons. I've converted all the squirrels on the trail. If you're not careful, somebody will come up behind you on their bicycle going, and you're preaching your sermon out like you're talking to, you get weird looks sometimes. They started calling me the preacher as they passed by. You can also proofread things. So overlap, that's another way to do it. And the last one is stress. Manage your stress level. Succeed at overcoming unpleasant tasks and overwhelming tasks. Let me divide those into, first, unpleasant task. Something you're dreading doing, you got to do it. How do I keep from procrastinating on this? Here's some practical ideas. Number 1, divide and conquer. PTP schedule, I kept the hours one year. It took about 500 hours to put that together. So it's the biggest single project that I work on. So I would dread it. Oh man, I guess can't start on next year's schedule. It's going to take forever. And then I'd put it off. And then it would be really stressful to get it done for the print. But I learned, don't think you got to do the whole schedule. Say, I'm going to do the teen schedule of PTP. Well, that's not that hard. That's 25 lessons, speakers. But then what I learned was once I got to do the teen schedule, before long, I had broken the ice and I was enjoying what it was. And you do more than that. But tell yourself, I'm going to do, it's the eat the elephant a bite at a time approach. It's a big thing, but you don't have to do it all at once. Just break it up in pieces, divide and conquer. This is, I don't know, I don't think I read this anywhere. I think this just happened over the years. But this is a little schedule that I've learned to do. It's, I'll give you the overview and then I'll tell you what they are. 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 2 hours, 1 day, 1 week. On big projects, 5 minutes is an icebreaker. You tell yourself, I can do anything for 5 minutes. I'm just going to open the file. I'm going to start reading it 5 minutes. The icebreaker is important because it allows you to get past the, I can't do this. 15 minutes, that's enough to accomplish something. I call that a bite, 5-minute bite, 15-minute snack. You work 15 minutes on something. Well, that means that you're going to accomplish some part of it. A 2-hour snack. No, a 2-hour, 5-minute icebreaker, 15-minute bite, 2-hour snacks. I told you that wrong on that. The 2-hour snack is, on the PTP schedule, I'll just schedule, on Monday morning. For preachers, Monday is farthest away from Sunday, so that's the easiest day with less pressure. Most people, Monday's a bad day. For preachers, it's a good day. It's like the pressure builds as the week goes along. Which we love to preach. That's not, I didn't mean to say that negatively. But Monday's a good time. Say Monday morning, first thing I'm going to work 2 hours on the PTP schedule. And then a 1-day meal. Well, once you get to a certain point, it's got to get done. Say, I'm going to work, I don't preach Sunday because we got a gospel meeting. I'm going to work Friday all day long on the PTP schedule. And then a 1 week, I call these bulldog sessions, when you got a project to a certain point, I'm just going to bulldog it and finish it. This whole week, as long as it takes. If it takes all week, I'm going to finish it. I might finish it Wednesday. But I'm just going to stay with it until it's done. At some point, projects have to get to that point. Overwhelming and unpleasant task. Unpleasant task. Only 3 simple ideas here. 1, do it first thing, get it done. So I'd hate doing this, but first thing when I get to work, I'm going to do this. Lay it on your desk if you have a desk job. It's the first thing you see when you get there. I'm going to finish, I'm going to do this. Number 2, unpleasant task, assign it to somebody else. They might like to do what you don't like to do. I do not like accounting, keeping up with miles and receipts and all that stuff. But some people love accounting. They get paid to do it. So it might be somebody on your staff you could trade off and say, would you take this and or maybe if it's somebody who works under you, you can assign it, say, get it to a certain point, then I'll finish it. And then number 3, at some point you have to eat the broccoli. You can cut it in small pieces, you put cheese on it. At some point you got to just eat the broccoli. Because if it's worth doing, then it's going to have to be done. All right, let's move on and talk about session 3. Saving time for what? You have most of this material in your book, so I didn't intend to spend as much time here, but let's spend a few minutes. We've got about 17 minutes or so. What are the categories in life to spend time on? The chances are that what you do Monday will be typical of what you will do all next week. What you do next week will be typical of what you do this month. What you do this month will be typical of what you will do this year. What you do this year will be typical of what you do this decade. What you do this decade will be typical of what you do with your life. So it all comes back to, what do I do with today? If I want to change my life, I change my today. It's the only thing that's in my control is my day. So how should I use my time? Well, number 1, time for God. There is a tendency to do the urgent things and leave the important things undone. There are deadlines associated with work that makes them urgent. There is a wife or a child who needs me to do something, and if I don't do it, then there will be negative repercussions. The child won't be picked up from school in time or whatever it is, so those things are urgent. But when does read the Bible ever make it to the top of my to-do list today? It's not urgent, but it's important. The average person spends 48 minutes a week in spiritual or religious activity. 48 minutes a week. If you just attended the church services, that'd be 34 minutes a day on average. That's allowing a little bit of time before and after to fellowship, visit. So, Brother Wendell Winkler was my teacher and mentor, and he said something that stuck with me through the years. A lot of things, but this on time management. He said, we preach about giving and being good stewards of our money, and we say, B.P. Black used to say 10% is where people get in, beginners get in at giving. But that 10% benchmark from the Old Testament tithing, you say, well, we talk about, a lot of people decide they'll give 10% at least of their money, but wouldn't that same principle also apply to our time? If we gave 10% of our time. So there's 168 hours in a week. It's just, say waking hours is 117 hours. 10% of that would be 11.7. Let's call that 12 hours. So if I'm going to give God 10% of my time, it seems a fair benchmark. All right, well, let's say the 4 services at church, and let's add an hour for getting there on time and talking to people after. So that's 5 of my 12 hours. Now, this point is particular about time with God in my closet or wherever it is that I spend my personal time with God in prayer and meditation and reading the Scriptures. Well, I don't know how much time you allot for that. Let's call that 4 hours a week. It might be more. Let's go at 4. That's 9 hours. That leaves us 3 hours. Now, when I think about being a part of a church, that means that there's going to be youth activities, college program, senior citizen program, depending on what my age is. There is a visitation team to be a part of and an assigned visit to make. There are widows in the church that I should take my kids by to visit once in a while. There are members of the hospital, go by and see them. There's death in the congregation. There's a ball game that one of the teenagers has on Tuesday night. It'd be really good if I showed up at that and encouraged him. Maybe I'm trying to convert his dad, and that's a good way to build rapport. Have a Bible study on a certain night of the week. So those 3 hours are used for church activities. And then I've given 10% of my time, and I've got my finger involved in just about every good work of the church. And I still got 90% of my time left for myself. Psalm 46:10, you still know that I'm God. Habakkuk 2:20, the Lord is in his temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. Matthew 13:22, beware of the thorn bushes that choke out the word. Those thorn bushes are not necessarily bad things, but my work and my sports and my hunting and those things can be disproportionate in my life. Family. Sometimes we don't recognize how invaluable our family is until we are further down the road and we look back. She won't always be that size, will she? And she won't always really want to spend time with her dad. Take advantage of it while it's there. The same thing with the wife. 1 Corinthians 7:29, our time with our spouses is short. Ephesians 6:4, our time with our children is short. Train them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Proverbs 22:6, same principle. And also our time with our parents is short. Depending on where you are in your age, maybe your parents now are in their final years. Maybe they require more of your time and visits and helping them to do things that they no longer can do for themselves. Well, 1 Timothy 5:8 says that that's our responsibility. It's not the church's. And really, there are, if you stay at a church a long time, you know a lot of people in the church, of course, and you see different family dynamics. And the ones that handle the grief process best, in my estimate, are the ones who do the best job leading up to the death. Ones that, and this isn't always possible, and this is not a judgment if somebody makes a different decision, but ones that take their family member, a mother, into their home and cares for her and waits on her, and or maybe it's in a nursing assisted living, but they go by every day and they feed and they read to them. Those that really do a good job there have a lot fewer regrets later when they're gone. And they're able to process that a lot better. And really, it brings more glory to God. I mean, that's really the bottom line, isn't it? There's people that work in those nursing facilities. People in church know the kind of relationship that's had. Personal time. Isaac meditated in a field. That's in the verses in your notes. I think it's Genesis 26. Have something that you enjoy doing. It doesn't have to make sense to everybody else. It might be you enjoy shooting baskets. It might be hitting some balls at the driving range. It could be you enjoy getting out on the lake and fishing with, leave your phone in the truck. It might be that you enjoy going to Alabama or Auburn football game, or Georgia or Georgia Tech, or whoever it is that you follow in this part of the country, and maybe whatever it is, but have some time that revitalizes your spirit. Genesis 24:63. And then The last one is make time for professional development. This would include going to classes. It would include staying over at work or taking online classes, whatever would allow you to be able to advance your career. And the more you advance your career, your family will benefit from it as your remuneration will increase, and that will allow your family to have more opportunities perhaps than they could have if you did not do that professional development. All right. Just to fill in the blanks real quick and we'll close this session. Make time for God, make time for church activities, make time for family, make time for personal development, make time for professional development. And I'm going to close with going back to your first sheet, the first lesson. I skipped 3 on purpose. So let's go back. And this is a good way to end this session on how to spend your time. You see Philippians 3:13 and 14 listed there about halfway down the page. Start at the end. Philippians 3:13, 14 says, forgetting those things which are behind, press toward the mark of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. We talk about time in a linear fashion. We usually say past, present, future. Paul talked about time, but he did it the opposite way. Future, present, past. He said, I'm reaching toward the mark. That's in the future. That's determining my today, and I forget the sins of the past. We talked about putting an old man's head on a young man's shoulder in our first session. This is about learning to live life backwards. I was with my dad when he died, 2010. He had a brain tumor, lived about a year after we found out. He was in a bed, didn't really have his mind the last couple of weeks. But for just a little while at the end, he came back and we got to have a conversation, tell each other we loved each other and talk just a little bit. I learned some things in that 12 months. I learned it from him, but I've seen it in other families too. And it will be true of you when you get there. It will be true of me. There are 3 things that people care about when they're on their deathbed. Peter Lynch retired from Magellan as a money manager at 46 years of age. That was the age his father died of a heart attack. And he said at that retirement ceremony, nobody on their deathbed ever says, I wish I'd spent more time at the office, you know. Well, here's what people do say on their deathbed. It's what they care about. Their relationship with God is number 1. Am I ready to meet God in judgment? I know I'm going to. I'm on my deathbed. Number 2, will my family be okay without me? Number 3, what about the local church? That's what's going to matter to you at the end if you're a Christian. Now, if that's going to matter at the end of my life, doesn't it make sense that that ought to matter to me right now? So ask yourself this question. This is how we'll end this. What am I doing to strengthen my relationship with God right now? Number 2, what am I doing to strengthen my family relationship right now? You know, sometimes marriages get in such a mess, you can't untangle them. And the counselor might say, wish you'd come a year ago before all these words have been said and this relationship has happened that shouldn't have happened. And strengthen the marriage now before you get further. What about relationship with the local church? Who's going to do what you do when you can't do it? And there will come a day when you can't do it. Who's going to preach the gospel? Who's going to shepherd the flock? who's going to handle your program, who's going to visit the widows, who's going to lead the singing, who's going to care about the youth. My favorite quotation, maybe my favorite overall quotation, but certainly one of my favorites would be Augustus Caesar found Rome a city of bricks, and he left it a city of marble. You moved into a congregation, you found it a city of bricks. In other words, it had some strengths, it has some weaknesses. If you're an elder, you inherited a congregation perhaps from a previous eldership. It had its strengths and it had its weaknesses. When you hand it off to the next eldership, make sure you hand off a city of marble. We're better off now than we were when I took over. Not because you're so smart or you're so great, but because you paid attention to it, prayed about it, worked on it as an eldership. All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you for your attention.